All right, so welcome everybody. In this video, I always wanted to do this one. It seems that's the most popular video on the channel, which I didn't realize that it would take off in such a nice way. It was on equivalent values. And I did a video on equivalent values with regards to simple interest. For anybody who has done any business math as an introduction, if you are not learning equivalent values, then there's something wrong. If you are interested in valuing companies, for example, you definitely have to understand the concept of equivalent values and, of course, compound interest. So this video is talking about equivalent values, compound interest with regards to those equivalent values, and I'll throw in a little bit of Warren Buffett with regards to trying to value a company, at least the basics, if anybody has done some introductory business math. So let's do it. All right. Okay. So now, if you want to be able to do equivalent values with regards to compound interest, you have, so here's a summary of the formulas, and I have gone over these already. I actually have a full out series on compound interest, and there's videos on simple interest as well. So I won't go over those in this video. I will assume that you know these equations from somewhere. I will put up a link, okay? So above you're gonna see a link, a card which is going to be talking about compound interest if you wanted to see any of these equations come into play. Now, with regards to equivalent values, right? So what we want to talk about here is, what do we mean by this equivalent? And there are a couple of things that you should pay attention to, and that is, go on the top right, so focal date and the concept of time value of money. Now, when you're watching this particular example, I have groceries here. Now, nobody's really going to be doubting, okay, so our groceries on the screen and saying that, well, these are not equivalent. They're actually carbon copies of each other, okay, so they better be equivalent. So these are equal, and that's what we mean by equivalent, so that we can compare two things that are basically the same. Now, in business math terms, when you're talking about equivalent values, then really what you're talking about is money. When is money the same? So I could have done something like this. So let's imagine we have these groceries. I'm going to put a timeline here. Okay, so I'm going to draw this out. Okay, so this particular timeline we have, let's say that these groceries right here, that is today. All right, so this is today. And now today, what you're going to pay for these groceries, okay, so let's say that we are paying, let's say $15.14, okay, so for these tomatoes, lemon, whatever, garlic bread and something. And now, let's say 15 months ago, all right, so 15 months ago, I'm picking this just arbitrarily, okay, so let's say this was 15 months ago, so going back in time, you actually would pay for exactly the same thing. Okay, let's say $14.85. Now, when you compare these two values in terms of money at different points in time, you're noticing, well, $14.85 is not the same as $15.14, or is it? Right? So that is the whole idea of equivalence. You, with respect to money, cannot be actually comparing two money amounts at different points in time. They have to be compared at the same time, meaning on the same day. Now, how do we do that? Well, if there was no interest ever related to money, so let's say if interest was just 0%, then clearly the money that we paid, well, we got a little bit ripped off today because we paid more if there was really no interest, no change in the value of money over time. Now, what happens is that what we want to know is, okay, interest is not really 0%. I mean, the change of money is not really 0%. So what could it possibly be? And this is how I want to be illustrating this whole concept of equivalence, right? Are these two money amounts equivalent? What if instead I would come to you and I would say, all right, so for whatever reason, the time value of money is worth 2%. So as you're going into the future, the money is not going to be able to be buying you exactly the same amount. So these two groceries, so if you bought today, you wouldn't be able to pay $14.85 for them. Obviously, they have gone a little bit higher. Now, in order to really compare these two values, so if you have this particular value and you have this particular value, okay, so are these equivalent? Are they the same in any way? Well, in order to do that, I have to bring them to the same date. And we call that the focal date, right? So we're putting it in focus. Now, you can pick that date arbitrarily. It could be anywhere, but most of the time we try to pick it so that it's convenient. Now, in this case, what I will do is I will actually pick today. So let's say today is my focal date. So this will be my focal date. And I'm going to be comparing. Now, in order to compare this $14.85 to the $15.14 of today, I have to move this money, okay, to that particular date. Now, that was 15 months ago. Now, if they say it's 2%, now I'm doing this with compounding, they also have to tell you how are they compounding. 2% what? All right. So this, let's say it's 2% and it is compounded quarterly. So we are going to be compounding that 2% quarterly. So now let's see what actually happens in the span of this particular amount of money. So I'm going to get rid of a few things here. So let me get rid of this, okay? So I'll delete this. We already know that it's groceries. So let me delete that. So I know that I have currently, so $15.14 that I want to be comparing this $14.85. So is it equivalent to that or not? So what I need to calculate the future value, and I need to calculate the future value. Notice what I'm doing is I have to move it 15 months into the future. Now, I am in the past with that $14.85. So I will be using, okay, so my formula, so present value, 1 plus I to the power of n. Now, I know all of these things. I know my present value for the groceries is $14.85. I know that my interest, so it is 2%, but it is compounded quarterly. So 0.02 divided by 4, it's quarterly. And now 15 months, well, how many quarters is that? So 15 months, a quarter is 3 months. So my n is 5. And now I can calculate this entire total. All right, so let me do that. So I'm going to, okay, so bring out a calculator here. Okay, so I'm going to shift it over a little bit so that you can see my face as well. So let's punch it all in. So 1485 multiplied by 1. So plus 0.02 divided by 4 because it's quarterly. And this is to the power of 5. All right. So notice it comes out to $15.22. Okay. So $15.22. Now, you are on the same focal date, meaning today. So now you can compare, you can say, at 2% compounded quarterly, so notice these two amounts, okay, they're not the same. They are not equivalent at 2% compounded quarterly. So it turns out, now someone might think that, they got a deal 15 months ago because they only paid $14.85. But because the time value of money changes, so as time goes on, the value of money will not buy you exactly the same thing. It actually turns out that 15 months ago, that $14.85 actually was more than we paid today for those groceries, $15.14. And that's the whole concept of equivalent. So equivalent values, if it is compounded, whatever it may be, quarterly, monthly, annually, you always can compare if two values are equivalent only on the same focal date, and somebody has to tell you what is the time value of money. So sometimes that might be just an inflation term that you might take with regards to the consumer price index, or it might be something else. Okay, so this, okay, in terms of equivalence, that's what it exactly means. Meaning you can compare two different values, or even three values, or four values. But when money comes into play, if they are at different points in time, you can't just add them, subtract them, or whatever it may be. You have to always bring them to the same focal date. And that's what this example hopefully illustrates to you with regards to these groceries. Now, where else can we take this equivalent value concept? So, on the next slide, what if we had to try to value a company? So I mentioned Warren Buffett. So Warren Buffett likes to do this, or in fact, any value investors. So they are valuing the actual companies. So that's what the key term here is. They're trying to value a company, or value your groceries, as we did in the previous example, or value anything, a toy or something else. So what happens is, if you're going to value something, you always want to try to compare it to something else. Now, I know that most people think about the stock market, so let's forget about the stock market for a second. So what someone like Warren Buffett does is that they simply are interested in, all right, so let's take all these blue that you see. Let's say, that this particular blue, so that is today. You can take a company and you can find exactly how much cash it has, all the assets it has, right? All the liabilities, so things that they have to pay out. And you can basically calculate, so today, how much, would this company be if I just closed it down? It no longer existed. We liquidated everything, we sold it, how much would it be? So typically, this might be something called like a book value, of some kind. So that is, let's say, like a current value that we have. And that would be if we liquidated the entire company. Now, give or take, you give yourself a margin of safety, as Warren Buffett would say. But now, what if we didn't close it down? What if that company kept on making money for us? So let's say in 1 year's time, it will make a certain amount of money for us. In 2 years' time, it will make some more money for us, and so on. So when it continues on and makes money. Ideally, for an infinite amount of time. But the reality is, if you know companies, they do kind of go down. Eventually, somebody will try to take them over, right? That's what capitalism is all about. You have all kinds of competitors, and maybe somebody will take them over. So what Warren Buffett does is, he wants to calculate the equivalent value today of a company. So he projects or thinks of, so how much do these companies make? So, all right, so next year they will make a certain amount, and then the following year and following year. So he typically will take the track record of those companies from the past, project it into the future, and then what he does is he literally, tries to take these amounts and brings them back and tries to find the equivalent value today. So we can do these. So we can bring this back, we can bring this back, and we can bring this back, and so on. Now, because it goes on forever, you might say, oh boy, that'll never work. So there are other concepts like annuities and perpetuities, which I'm not talking about here. I'm just interested in equivalent value. So I am taking money, and what you want to understand is you want to bring it over to a focal date. So our focal date would be today, because we want to try to buy this company today. So what if you brought all of those amounts back to today, and then, okay, if someone gave you a price and said, would you buy this company for this much? Well, if you did this exercise for yourself, you would know if the money that they are trying to sell you the company for is actually worth it. And that's what it's called, valuing a company. So let's simplify it a little bit, because you're just starting with compounding and equivalent values. So let's imagine, so I have this, so I've shrunk this over, okay? So instead of having it forever, let's just say that we have 2 payments down the line, okay? Now, these particular payments, okay, let's say that this, instead of 1 year, we know that we had some payment at 2 years' time and 4 years' time, and that's about it. That's all that you would get. So you would get the current value of the company, so all the cash and assets it has, and then you would know that in 2 years' time and in 4 years' time, they will make a certain amount of money. Okay, so let's play this game of valuing a company and using equivalent values to solve this. So let's imagine, okay, so here I have in purple that somebody, okay, Mr. Market, okay, as Warren Buffett likes to say. So Mr. Market is offering you a company, 1 share of the company, as you would see on a stock market. And so that particular company is being sold today at $10.25. That's what you see in purple. That is Mr. Market. Mr. Market is offering you $10.25 and is asking you, do you want to buy this company? Now, you currently estimate, so that's what you see in blue. So in blue, okay, what you estimate right now is, at the moment, if there were no future earnings at all to make and you just liquidated the company, you have, okay, the actual company being valued at $7.94. Now, if there were no future values to make, no earnings to make, you would compare the two because they're on the same day, so those are equivalent, right? Now, $10.25 is not equivalent to $7.94. So you definitely would say, I don't want this company. Why would I want to pay $10.25 when if I sold it, okay, in reality and liquidated, I would just get $7.94. So they're not equivalent. But you know that, for example, that for this 1 share for this company, in 2 years' time, this company is going to make money. Now, how much money will it make? So here, what we have, okay, is in 2 years' time, it's going to add $1.25 for every share, which currently is $7.94, to your actual earnings. And now in 4 years' time, let's say that your company is going to add another $2.40. Now you might be tempted and you might say, let me add this, let me add this and that, and I can now calculate, add it all up. Okay, how does it compare to $10.25? And then should I buy this from Mr. Market, meaning the stock market, or should I not buy it? Now, technically, if we had 0%, okay, interest associated with the time value of money, then you could just simply add them up and compare. Unfortunately, we don't have, and typically, okay, what someone like Warren Buffett or someone who values, they will take and they understand that there is compounding on money. And what they have to do is they have to bring this money back to today, meaning they need a focal date, and that focal date will be today. So they're going to bring this money back, and now they're going to take an interest. So they might compare it to some interest, and you can think of it, for example, if you just had money sitting around, how much of an interest would it gain you? Well, someone like Buffett, what they do is they simply will take something like the treasury bills, okay, and what interest they accumulate over time, which is pretty much guaranteed. You can think of it as, well, what does a savings account give me? Okay, so now obviously this changes over time. It's not always the same, and you have to pick it. So let's say for the time being, say, at best, you're going to get 1.5% compounded annually. So that is the time value of money. Now, because we want to find the equivalent values of these today, meaning what is the equivalent value of the $1.25 2 years from now today? So what we have to do is we have to bring this money back, right? So we're bringing the money back. And in this case, if you're bringing money back, so that's from the future back into the present, so we would have to use, okay, our present value formula, which is present value over the future equals to future value 1 plus I to the minus n. Now we're doing it annually, so it won't be that bad, and I'll do one calculation. So let's bring that $1.25 back. So this is at 0.015, that's 1.5%. It is compounded annually, so we can go ahead, and n would be 2. So now if I compute this, okay, so let's compute that out. So I have $1.25 multiplied by 1 plus 0.015 to the power, okay, and this would be -2 equals. So notice it drops $1.21. So what this is saying is that $1.25 2 years from now is equivalent to $1.21 today. Those two are equivalent at 1.5% compounded annually. Those are equivalent. So that we know. So I can add this. So $1.21. Now I can add $7.94 for that company per one share to the 121 because those are on the same focal date. Now the second calculation that you have would be for, okay, your $2.40 except 4 years from now. So let's take a look at that. All right, so I'm going to bring that money back again. So $2.40, 1 plus 0.015 minus, this is 4 years. Now remember, I in compounding it's always the compounding period, but it's annually. So, here annually we would divide by 1 because we're compounding annually. If it was compounded quarterly, we would have to divide by 4. And that would also change our n. But we're working with annually. So now if I take this, so again, let me clear this out. And I have, $2.40 multiplied by 1 plus 0.015 to the power of -4. Now this becomes $2.26. And of course you can use your business calculator if you like, okay? And I have done those videos as well, okay? If you want to know how to input this into a business calculator like a business analyst. So now we have here $2.40. 4 years from now is equivalent to $2.26 today. Those are values equivalent. And here, so what I can do is, so I have that. Now I can add these up. And now I can say, all right, so let's see what happens. Okay, so here I have 794 plus 121 plus 2.26 equals, notice this says 1141. So what does this mean, 1141? That means, now, of course you are projecting into the future, so you don't know what that company will actually bring in and generate, but we have assumed that that's what it would be. And that someone like Warren Buffett or anyone else who's valuing, they do have to kind of project. So it's an art. It's not a science. Nobody will tell you. If everybody would tell you, then it would be easy to value companies. But that's what makes it hard, because you don't know what will happen and how much money they will grow by in terms of a company. But now if you do that, now if Mr. Market says, oh, I am selling you these items, okay, or this particular business, $10.25 per share today, that's how much they're offering you, but you have valued your company at $11.41, then you can say, then it's a deal. $10.25 is pretty good if I consider 1.5% as the time value of money. And that's how it actually works. And these equivalent values and comparisons are super useful. So you, as someone who's learning this, or you're a student, don't feel that not learning equivalent values is a waste of time. It's actually pretty good. And anyone who wants to get into any kind of investing, just some basics, now you will understand, okay, what these guys try to do. And the biggest problem, of course, is how do you project out these actual future earnings of these companies. So would you buy this or would you not buy it? I guess I would buy it, okay, based on this particular calculation. Now, of course, it may change for you. All right, so I hope that you found this useful. I will add another video, okay, with regards to this, and that video is going to take this example into account, which is debt and repayment. Okay, so I'm going to do that video, and you're going to be able to watch it on the channel in the future as well. All right, so this one will be a little bit more complicated, and it will deal with equivalent values, time value of money, and so on. All right, thank you for watching. I hope that you found this video on equivalent values useful with regards to compounding. Okay, if you did, give it a thumbs up. Okay, you can subscribe as always. Okay, and cheers. We'll see you later. Bye.